تيرارارارارارارا تيرارارا بحلم بيك أنا بحلم بيك وبأشواقي مستنيك بحلم بيك أنا بحلم بيك وبأشواقي مستنيك.
Egypt's Awakening. Bonham's forthcoming sale of modern and contemporary Egyptian art takes its name from the eponymous monumental public sculpture that you can see here in a very busy downtown Cairo square. When Mukhtar came to sculpt this work in the early 1920s, he proclaimed, "I'm the first sculptor that Egypt has seen in 1700 years." And in many ways he was correct. Centuries of Ottoman and British rule had stifled individual artistic expression in the country. And now, after renewed political and cultural independence, Egypt was finally beginning to assert its national identity. And really what we see here is the perfect melange of the ancient and the modern. The old bulwark of Egyptian culture, the Sphinx, supporting the towering maternal figure of Mother Egypt, revealing not only her face, but the face of Egypt to the rest of the world. The Great Pyramids and Sphinx of Giza. It's unsurprising that when Egyptians came to forming their artistic identity, their modern artistic identity, in the early 20th century, they would focus on the grand visual legacy of the ancient Egyptian past. The early 20th century saw the excavations of these incredible sites, and after Napoleon's conquests and the protectorate of the British in Egypt, there was a renewed interest globally over Egyptian artifacts and ancient history. This really filtered through the world and can be seen in movements like Art Deco and Egyptian Revival architecture in Europe. But really it's at the turn of the century in Egypt when modern artists, in their search for forging a distinct local artistic identity, decided really to focus on the visual characteristics of ancient Egypt. And the excavations and archaeology going on in the 1920s really renewed the interest and the awe that Egyptians had for their past. In order to understand the development of Egyptian modernism, it's important not just to look at the ancient past, but at developments in Egypt in the 20th century. Now, the process of foreign migration into Egypt was greatly stimulated by the Khedives of the Muhammad Ali dynasty, who throughout the 19th century turned cities like Cairo and Alexandria into cosmopolitan metropolises where Italian architects, French painters, Greek philosophers were part of the bustling and vibrant city culture. And Egyptian art is really a synthesis of Western modes of artistic expression and the Egyptian character. And we see in Egypt a compression really of 19th and 20th century art movements into a space of about 40 or 50 years. The Egyptian artists were working with academic styles, Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, and later on Surrealism and Abstract Expressionism, all within a very short period. Whilst using the Western vocabulary artistically, their work was distinctly Egyptian in character. We're back in London now to take a glimpse at some of these standout works from our April sale of modern and contemporary Egyptian art. Well, the highlight of the auction has to be Mahmoud Said's Fille à l'imprimé, or Girl in a Printed Dress. Painted in 1938 at the height of Mahmoud Said's artistic maturity, Fille à l'imprimé presents us with not only one of the central themes of Mahmoud Said's work, but one of the key symbols of modern Egyptian art, which is the Egyptian fellaha, or female peasant laborer. In her quiet dignity and in her noble suffering, Egyptian artists like Said saw a kind of symbol of Egyptian dignity, and her plight, her struggle to provide her family and her daily toil became an almost heroic theme in Egyptian art. Depicted here resting on an amphora, which would be held upon her head, another symbol of her daily struggle. The girl in a printed dress is the perfect balance between dignity and sensuality. Painted in 1938 and immediately classified as a masterpiece by Jean Moscatelli, one of the foremost Italian art critics in Egypt at the time, the work has been widely exhibited and published during Said's lifetime. It's nothing less than an iconic painting by Egypt's most acclaimed artist. This striking self-portrait by Saif Wanli epitomizes the cosmopolitan nature of early 20th century Egypt. Saif was the archetypal product of multicultural Alexandria with its melting pot of cultures. One of Egypt's most prolific artists, Wanli was of mixed Turkish and Russian ethnicity. Here he stands proudly bearing the symbols of his Caucasian heritage. He dons a koskorovska, the traditional tunic of the Russian working classes, with a Russian samovar in the background and clutching a book from Russia's Hermitage Museum. The painting represents Egypt's confidence, almost boastfulness, in its unprecedented cultural diversity. Fuad Kamal's Surrealist Woman is really a total break from some of the more traditional and academic styles of earlier modernists represented in this sale. Firmly bearing the visual hallmarks of what can be called the Egyptian avant-garde, Kamal was a member of the influential surrealist group Art and Liberty, which attempted to form a bridge between local artistic expression and international modes of painting. This work is evidence of an Egypt which was very much connected to the global modernist discourse. These exquisite works and many more will be on view at Bond Street between the 15th and 17th of April. We urge collectors and enthusiasts alike to come and view them.